Hi everybody, and welcome to the very first episode of the DevOps Lab. I am joined today by good friend Dmitry Lyalin.
How's it going?
Who is the product manager of Visual Studio Team Services, correct?
Yes.
Excellent. So this show is really going to be about solving problems with DevOps. So a lot of talking about why we're doing things, but mainly focusing on actually solving the issues. So I thought today would be a really good chance to summarize kind of what we saw at Connect, which was really recently.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we may as well start with Brian Harry's blog. He's kind of the place to go to find out what got announced.
We had a ton of announcements. It's probably one of our biggest pushes on DevOps in a really long time. I've been on this team for 5 years, and in a long time, I don't remember releasing this much stuff for the DevOps space at one moment in time. So this is really awesome, and Brian summarizes all the top announcements. So let's go take a look.
Yeah, let's have a look through them. So this is blog. You can find that very easily by searching for blogs.microsoft or Brian Harry's blog. I think it'll come up
We'll
very
put
easily.
a link into the show notes, so no worries.
So let's go through it. So there's a few different things. The headings here, TFS 2018 final release. So 2018 is out. Yeah,
exciting. So for those customers that still have TFS on premises, this is yet another roll-up of all the top features that we've been pushing down from the service. So in case customers don't know, we develop VSTS in the cloud. So Team Services gets built in the cloud. We put in all the new features there. That's the way you get the features the quickest. And then we bundle them up as updates for TFS. And occasionally we get to the point where we bundle enough updates and we have sort of a major moment coming. So we rev TFS to a new version, and TFS 2018 is the latest version of that. So that is the latest version you can install today. And there'll be updates for 2018 coming out later this year and next year. So yeah, it's really awesome. Customers can install it. It's fully production ready, fully tested, and has a lot of really great features. In fact, if you take a look here, we've got a kind of a summary. Brian listed only some of the features that are out there. So we've got the mobile work item experience that's been built into VSTS for a while now, and that's available to on-prem customers. We've got the wikis coming in with enhancement to the ability to create this yet another little repo with your project that has all the notes and all the links and anything else that people want to share.
And that's very good. That's Markdown, and it's in your source control, right?
Yes, it's Markdown. You can pull it down as a repo, modify it directly locally, and it has a web-based editor, so folks on the team can come in and change the content right there without having to pull any code if they don't want to do that.
Right.
So that's cool. We've got enhancements to Git forks. This is something that we've been wanting to bring down for quite a while now, and we have a lot more stuff coming for forks later, but this is kind of the first version of some of the features coming down for that. GVFS support is becoming a bigger thing.
That one's a big deal. I love that. Really difficult to deal with Git repositories that are many top in size, right? So GVFS kind of enables that kind of workflow.
Yeah. The Windows team is the one that needed it. I mean, the Windows team couldn't get their work done. I don't know if folks even realize that we built Windows on Visual Studio Team Services in the cloud. There's no on-prem installation for them. So GVFS was something we had to build to make Git be supporting their very unique situation of really huge file sizes there. I think probably game developers are the only other audience that I can think of, like AAA studios, building those huge games with lots of terabytes of assets that probably even come close. But if anybody does have huge amount of source, GVFS is something to take a look at. It's something that we're working with other Git providers like GitHub, and I believe other things were announced here as well. But basically, this will be an industry standard if we can help it. We open source the project, and we believe in contributing this back. We don't want GVFS to be something behind the firewall at Microsoft. So.
No, definitely.
It's cool.
Awesome. All right, let's keep going. There's a lot of stuff there. So
graphical release editor, that's been pushed down now.
I love this release editor. It's so much nicer to see what's going on. Yeah.
That's a great reason to upgrade. I mean, if you have TFS on-prem, you definitely should look at 2018. So that's a very cool release.
For sure. Deployment groups. I'm actually speaking to Abel Wang a little bit in the future about deployment groups. So this is a really handy way to deploy stuff on-prem, right?
Yeah.
So VSTS fantastic for deployments to Azure especially, but this enables really smooth deployments to on-premises servers as well.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Definitely.
So there's a bit more stuff about GVFS. I'm going to come back to this. So this is a big one. This is the Azure DevOps Projects.
I'm excited. I got to see this baby when it was still in slides, before we even had bits. So I'm excited to see it actually ship. But yeah, let's come back to it.
So we'll come back to that because I want you to walk me through that.
Yeah.
And then there's a few other things. Where are we? This is just all screenshots of that. You can see what I mean. This is a big thing.
Yeah.
Pipeline as code. This is something that I'd like to come back to at a later date. This could be its hour-long video by itself.
Yeah, it's its whole topic, but yeah, YAML is going to change the way a lot of people do their builds and deployments. So exciting stuff.
The big thing with this is that it means that your build definition can be inside your source control, so it can be versioned alongside your code, which is a big deal. Release management gates is quite cool as well. We can talk about that at a different date. Well, I want to get to one of these things. So there's VSTS Symbol Server is great as well. Cloud-hosted Mac builds is amazing.
Yeah.
So this is the case of not having to have a build agent running on your own Mac, right?
Yeah. So we've had for a long time as a hosted build agent in the cloud. In other words, customers can just go into VSTS, they can create a build definition, and they could have created it against Windows and Linux for quite a while now, and Mac was just not available. And we've had the Mac builds as part of Mobile Center, which got renamed to App Center as part of Connect as well. So that was the Xamarin acquisition that we did. And so that build pool has now come to VSTS as something that's just exposes the raw capability of the build agent. So you can go in there, and we're now, as far as I know at least, the only cloud build provider that has Linux, Windows, and Mac build pools. They're just available for customers. You can build Mac OS applications. You can build iOS applications with it. It's still a preview. We want feedback. Maybe there's bugs in there, whatever. But the reality is we've been using this for a while now with the App Center folks.
It's very cool.
It's definitely been hardened by that experience.
Very, very cool. All right, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit just because I want to talk about this one specifically, the VSTS CLI.
Yeah, that's a cool one.
So lately, and I'm on a Mac, as you can probably tell from all the screen stuff.
Yeah.
I've been using Mac a lot just because we're any language, any platform now, right?
Yeah.
So this VSTS CLI is fantastic for people like me who are trying to do all of their scripting and all of their stuff day to day on a Mac. If I'm using Node or something like that, ASP.NET Core, I don't need to jump into Windows if I'm running on a Mac. So yeah. I thought I'd just walk through this. I've got a little example here. I have a project in VSTS, and it is my ICANN has CI/CD app. So I've got a repository in here. I've just got this one repository, but I wanted to add like another ASP.NET Core application really easily. And so I can do things like add new Git repos and check builds and all that sort of stuff with the CLI. I'll come back to that, but if we
it's probably worth saying to folks that the CLI works on 3 different operating systems, right? This will be a cross-platform CLI. It works on Windows, it works on Mac, it works on Linux. You're going to show it working on the Mac version. The Windows one, I think, has the nicest install experience right now. I mean, this is just a preview, so we'll optimize things as we go. In fact, the team, I was talking to them yesterday, they plan to, it's built in open source as well. That's something that's awesome. So they plan to keep iterating and adding features without doing a major quote-unquote release, but they're going to keep on improving it, and hopefully next year we'll be able to GA this thing, and let's take a look at what we can do here in the Mac.
Yeah, for sure. So, and you were saying that the install experience is best for Windows, but I think the way I installed it here was just brew install and then VSTS CLI.
Cool.
And then it pulled down everything I needed, and it's available now. I can just type VSTS and it gives me the details here.
Yeah.
So like as an example, let's have a look at VSTS build list, for example. So I've already configured some defaults here with, I've logged in using a personal access token.
Okay.
I've set a default project and a default instance and so on. So I can just go straight to these, to the builds and just get a list of all of the builds that have run. Now this is a massive dump of JSON. So what I'm going to do, we'll do VSTS build list, and then I'm going to pipe it to a little tool called JQ, which basically just parses JSON into objects. We'll grab the first one and then we'll say result, and just see what that says. So I can see that the first build result has succeeded. So you can see it's pretty easy to actually pull this stuff down. And there's a ton of stuff in here. So VSTS gives you stuff for build, for code, even providing feedback to the team that's building VSTS CLI, which is amazing. I can I can submit my feedback directly from the command line, which is where I am at the moment.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, they're going to add more capabilities later, so this is just the initial set, and they basically, the goal is to make it one-on-one with everything you can do in the UI, you can do in the command line, just like you can do with our management APIs. So the goal is to make it all the same, and for now, this is what they have in there. So
the little script that I wrote, just to jump back to that, I just wanted to create like a new ASP.NET Core MVC app. So I wrote a little bash script called new core repo. I'll give it a name. What is it? I don't know. Was it DevOps Labs? DevOps Lab, and I'll make it an MVC app. So I just basically wrote this shell script to create a new folder. Let's skip that version, thanks. Create a new folder, create a new ASP.NET Core MVC application, and then talk to the VSTS CLI to create a new repo, upload that code, and get all of that sort of stuff set up.
Cool.
So right from here, you can see, there we go, we've already created that. If I refresh this page in VSTS, I now have this DevOps Lab repository in here. So to do that, it's pretty basic. So let's just use VS Code to have a look at that. We've just got this new .NET Core repo, which calls a new repository thing. And then we're just calling VSTS code repo create, passing the name that I gave it.
Nice.
Really, really simple example of just creating this stuff directly from the command line. So I don't have to leave the tool that I'm using. I don't have to jump into the browser to do all this sort of stuff.
Yeah, and it's worth pointing out here, I mean, you are using the Git tools as well, right, in order to get it put up into Git. So
I am,
the VSTS tools aren't going to replace the Git command line tools. You have to install a couple of things, but that's what you do when you work with command lines. And I've actually become a big fan of command line much more than I used to be. Like I think my career has gone through many phases. I started off with the command line world when we first started developing, back when I was doing Perl and other stuff. And then I got into the Windows world. I became an IDE person. I became very spoiled by all of that.
Right,
but lately, I'm loving, especially for working with Git. I love working with command line. And VSTS just gives me yet another option there. So it's awesome.
But it's just another option for people who work with a different workflow. Yeah, really handy.
Cool.
All right, I wanted to jump back. So this is the big one, and I wanted to get you to walk me through this. This is the DevOps projects in Azure, right?
Yes.
Azure DevOps projects. Can you walk me through this? I mean, there's so many options for building an entire CI/CD pipeline, but this has got to be one of the easiest. From starting from scratch to having everything set up, doing DevOps properly. Can you walk me through this? How do you actually get started?
Yeah, so let's actually jump into my machine here. So we'll switch over, and I'll show you guys right from the management experience in Azure. So here we are in the Azure portal, and if you go to all services and you just type in DevOps into the filter here, you're going to get this new thing. It's in preview called DevOps Projects. So when you click on DevOps Projects, it's going to take you into a list of all of your DevOps projects available. So now I'm just going to not even wait for that. I know which ones I have. I'm going to hit Add, and I'm going to go into the Add experience for it. So let's jump in here for full screen, make it a little bit easier. So the DevOps projects, the idea here is to make it really, really easy to start off with having a full CI/CD pipeline for some source code, against some framework or language, and against some Azure deployment endpoint, right? And then this is going to keep expanding. So right now we're just in preview, so we only have a limited number of languages we support and frameworks in the starting position here. So let's say you want to have the Java app be your template, or your Node or your Python app. You can do that. You can even start with your own code. But I'm a .NET developer, so I'm going to start with .NET here. And even for .NET, it's smart enough to know that, hey, .NET means different things to different people. So do you want the regular .NET, the full framework, or do you want to use the core? So let's say I select the core one, and it's a really nice wizard experience that then will ask you, all right, so you're building this full CI/CD pipeline, you got to deploy it to something. And that something, in this case, gives you the option between web apps on Windows or Linux, or a container-based one. So in my case, I'm going to choose the Windows version. And this is where even more glue just becomes really easy, gets exposed to you through a simple UI, which says, all right, so we know the kind of framework you want to target as a developer. We know where you want to deploy to, in this case, app service and Windows. But now we're going to actually set up your full CI/CD pipeline for you. And we're going to use the power of Team Services to do that. And Visual Studio Team Services has had this capability for a while. It has it today. You don't have to use this experience in order to set up your CI/CD pipeline. But this is, like you said in the beginning, this is the easy way to do it, right? Easy way to set it up. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to choose an existing account for it. And I'm going to choose my demo account that I use. And I'm going to say DevOps Project 02 as my demo. And what this is going to do is connect up to VSTS. Like I've already set up the authentication part, so there's no prompts needed. And it's going to ask me, all right, so you want to connect up to your GitHub repo and use this particular instance of VSTS, and then which region on Azure do you want to deploy the endpoint to, the app service running in Windows. So in this case, we're giving it the same project name and the same URL indicators in both. You can change that, but it defaults it to be the same. Data center, sure, South Central doesn't matter for this particular demo. So I'm just going to hit done, and this is going to go off and it's going to start setting everything up. So normally what steps would I have to take to get here? I would have had to go into VSTS first, check in some code, then set up and build and release a pipeline, connect it to some Azure accounts, provision app service in Azure. I would have to hook it up together, and then my check-ins and my working with code would start flowing out to a website, right? Yep. That would have been the normal flow. You can still do that. And in fact, even when this is done, you can come in and you can customize the heck out of it. So if, let's say, the default app is not sufficient for you because, let's say, you need a database, right, task in there. You want to use, let's say, SSDT to deploy some SQL scripts each time there's a push. You can do all of that. It's fully customizable. But this just gives you the starting experience, and that lets you play with it. So with that, I will show you the one that I already set up, just so we don't have to wait for this one to get configured. This takes about 5 minutes, but I don't think our audience wants us to go for 5 minutes. I'll
speed it up.
I'll speed it up 1000% forward, and I'll click on the one I've already configured. And I love this experience because this is an awesome dashboard that really makes it clear everything it's set up. It integrates application insights by default into it. So I've got just again, think about all the stuff you'd have to configure manually. This has all been set up for a wizard that, if I wasn't sitting here explaining it, would have taken me like less than a minute to run through, probably 30 seconds. And now, just to show you how this is hooked up to the VSTS side of the house, if I click on anything here, so let's say I want to see the builds that have been configured for me automatically, it takes me right into VSTS, it authenticates me in if I'm authenticated, and I can see the definitions that it's set up in here. I can come in and I can edit the existing one, or I can take a look at the status of the ones that are happening, and it's got all the build definitions right here the way you would normally expect it inside of it. Then we also have our releases, so it set up the releases for me. So it's got the releases here. As you can see, I was tinkering with it, it was failing, but again, everything is set up automatically by the pipeline for you, and you've got this one dashboard view. Let's get out of full screen for a second. So then it has your source code, it has your build, it has your release, and has the application insights all in one place. This is the website where it's deploying to, and as you can see, it's kind of the default template that we have here. But yeah, everything is configured right out of the box in a few minutes.
That's really cool. It's a great way to get a starting point with a brand new application configured to deploy that all the way through to Azure with a proper CI/CD pipeline. Yeah. And then you can build from there.
Yeah, you can expand from there. And if you have a simple app that, let's say, doesn't need a database, that you want to be a starter project, Abel Wang did this during Connect, during one of the demos where he was showing it off, one of your fellow advocates. Yep. He ran through this whole thing in his demo. Then he went to clone the GitHub repo, and he deleted the sample app. This sample app, he killed it. He put his own sample app up. He committed that, and a few seconds later, it was up on Azure. So that's the power. The pipeline doesn't care what's in the pipeline. As long as it can build it, it can release it, and you can customize it with tasks, or you can really go crazy with it. He had one part of his demo where he really customized the heck out of it and did a lot more than the default. Yep. Most apps aren't going to be this simple, so you can do whatever you need to do.
Awesome. We'll put a link to that video as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. So heaps of stuff came out of Connect. The last release was 126 or something.
Sprint 126 was the release. In fact, here I'll show that. I have the release notes up. So if you look at release notes up in our documentation portal, and we'll put a link to that as well, you can see we released a ton, and we see the DevOps project as part of that sprint because our team did build it. So we've got a ton of information here between Brian's blog post and then the detailed release notes. You can get all the highlights and all the information.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for joining me on the first little teaser kind of episode. And yeah, hopefully we'll see you again in one of the future episodes.
Yeah, it'd be great to come on.
Awesome. And thanks everybody for joining us. Stay tuned to this show as well. There'll be a lot more of this kind of content, especially walking through solving some of the problems as well.
And we'll have some fancy graphics eventually.
Yeah, we'll have a bumper and all that cool stuff. Awesome. Thanks everyone. See you later.
Thank you.